In the previous task, we gained access to the support system. Now it's time to see what we can do with it. So this is test number 11. Yesterday we completed test number 10 and we got the username and the password. I believe the username was, can't remember exactly, but M. Rivera, and the password was let me in one. Maybe we need it, maybe we don't. Let's see. So let me just start the machine. I'm already connected to the VPN, so we are on task number 11. The home interface shows us a table of tickets. If we click on any of the rows in the table, we get redirected to a page where we can view the full ticket. So let us just wait for the machine to pop up here and then see if we can remember the credentials. So let me just minimize this. This should appear in about 36 seconds. So we will go into the ticket number. What does this mean? The numbering means that we know the tickets aren't being identified by hard guessed IDs, which means that are identified by easily guessed IDs. They are simply assigned an integer identifier. What happens if we use Intruder to fuzz support ticket endpoint? One of the things will happen. The endpoint has been set up correctly only to allow us to view tickets that are assigned to our current user, or, and this is the big or, the endpoint has not had the correct access control set, which would allow us to read all of the existing tickets. If this is the case, then a vulnerability called insecure direct object reference or broken object level authentication, BOLA, which is most recently called, is present. Let's try fuzzing. Which type of attack is best used? So I believe it's the sniper. Configure an appropriate position and payload. The tickets are stored at values between 1 and 100. You should find at least 5 tickets will be returned with a status code of 200. So let's just copy this and paste it into Firefox, which is configured to work with Burp Suite. Support ticket number. Let me just first maybe connect. Where was it? Login. Products. Bastion. Where was it? Let me just see. It was at support login. So we are at support login. What was the username? Yeah, M. Rivera, and the password let me in one. Perfect. So I remember the password. All right, and that was yesterday. So in this situation, what we need to do, we are on text number 11. What we need to do is to go to this. Let's just click on a support ticket number 6. And remember, this is configured with Burp. Let's just send this to the Intruder, support ticket number 6. And in this situation, let's clear everything and just add this position here. We want to actually see if we can find some insecure direct object reference. The payload is gonna be, so simple list, let's just numbers, sequential from 1 to 100, steps, let's just say, so it's gonna go from 1 to 1, and let's see if this is the correct way to set about it. And then once it's finished, because this is not rate limited because I have the professional version of Burp Suite, we'll just filter by status, and we can see we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which are correct. So in this situation, we have an insecure direct object reference condition. So the response, ticket number 83, one of these responses is probably going to contain the flag that we need to put in there. So let's just search for THM. 1 match, THM 0 matches, 3 matches. So ticket number 83 should be the one. Let's see. THM, and this is the flag. So ticket number 83, we had a response of 200. And we'll just plug this in. configure an appropriate position and payload, which is what we did, enter using the response tab in the attack result window or by looking at each successful 200 core request manually in your browser. I've actually searched for it. CSRF token bypass. Let's see how many minutes we are in here, because if I'm actually going to tackle this, I think I've looked over it yesterday. I think it's going to take a little bit longer. So we're 5 minutes in. Let's just crank this up to at maximum 20 minutes. Let's crank this up notch with an extra mile exercise. This challenge will be a slightly harder variant, so if I'm not actually going to get this through from the first attempt, I'm actually going to look at CSRF token bypass. CSRF token bypass, try hack me. Maybe we're actually going to look into this. So, because I don't want to make this video awfully long just to prove a point that I'm still very ignorant like most everyone else in the field. So yeah, I actually aware that I do not know a lot. If you're comfortable using Burp macros, please feel free to do this challenge blindly, otherwise read on. So we have let's start by catching a request to this. Okay. Let's catch a request to that. Admin login. Login. Invalid username or password. Let's look into the request. Let's finish with this burp. Discard that. Go back into the proxy. Admin login. Where is... so it was a post request. Exactly, Control R, we're going to send this to the repeater. We can see that we have a login token here. Alright, so far so good. We are seeing the login token, we have the same username and password, but now there is a session cookie set in the response. We have the session cookie here. Where is it? And this session cookie, I believe this is a JWT token because it's been separated, so it has 3 fields. The first one, which encodes the algorithm, the second one, which actually is the payload, and the third one, which is the signature. We can verify that by looking into jwt.io over here and actually paste it in there. We can see that exactly what I said. So this is a JWT token. Alright, now next, if we refresh the page, we should see that both of these change with each request. This means that we need to extract valid values for both every time we make a request. In other words, every time we attempt to log in, we will need a unique value for the session cookie and login token hidden form. Enter macros. So in many cases, we could do this kind of thing using a payload called recursive grep, which would be a lot easier than what we're going to have to do here. Unfortunately, because the web app redirects us back to the login page, which is why we've seen the login here one more time. So we can see the get request, the post request, and then a redirection. We can see the 302 status and it redirects back to the login. We will need to do this the hard way. Specifically, we will have to define a macro to be executed before each request. This will grab a unique session cookie and matching the login token, then substitute them into each request of our attack. Before we get into the tricky stuff, let's deal with what we know. So activate Burp, capture the request and send it to the intruder. I'm actually going to send what I have here from this into the intruder, send it to the intruder. Configure the position the same way as you did before brute forcing the login, so we need the username and the password. So we clear everything and we'll just add these 2 payloads. Alright, then we need to set up a pitchfork attack. So the attack is pitchfork. Clear all of the predefined positions, select only username and password, which is what we did. Now switch over to the payload subtab and load in the same username and password we used before. The same username and password word list we used for the support login attack. So payloads, the first one is a simple list. We're gonna load the usernames. So usernames. For the second one, we're gonna load the passwords. What else? Until this point, we have configured Intruder in almost the same way as our previous credential stuffing attack. This is where things start getting more complicated. With the username and password parameters handled, we now need to find a way to grab the ever-changing login token and session cookie. Recursive grab won't work here due to the redirect response. So what we need to do is use macros that will allow us to perform the same set of actions repeatedly. In this case, we simply want to send the GET request to this. Fortunately, setting this up is a very easy process. Switch over to project options, then go to sessions. So project options, sessions. Scroll down to the bottom to the macros. Alright, click on the add button. That's what we do. The menu that appears will show our request history. If there isn't a GET request to admin login, which is what we're looking for here, this is a GET request. Navigate to this location. With the request, click OK. OK. Then, finally, give the macro a suitable name. Macro 1, which is suitable. Click OK to finish the process. There are a lot of steps comparatively speaking. So we actually give the macro a name. Alright. And then click OK. Click OK. Alright, now that we have a macro defined, we need to set session handling rules that define how the macro should be used. Still in the session subtab of project options, scroll to session handling rules, which is over here at the top. Add a new rule. Alright, then details and scope. We are in the details tab by default. Fill in the appropriate description. Rule number 1, which is descriptive enough. In the tools scope section, deselect every checkbox other than intruder. We do not need this rule to apply anywhere else. Alright, fair enough. In the URL scope, choose use suite scope. Okay, define in the target tab. Hopefully I'm doing this right. If you have not set a global scope, keep the use custom scope option and add to the scope in this section. So use suite scope, and that's it. Hopefully this is it. The rule contains no action. If you have not set a global scope, keep use in the URL scope section, choose use suite scope. Okay, this will set up the macro to only operate on sites that have been added to the global scope, as was discussed in Burp Basics. If you have not set a global scope, keep the use custom scope. Okay. And add this to the scope in this section. Let's see if that works. Now we need to switch back to over to the details tab and look at the rule action section. Where are the details? Click add button that will cause a drop down menu with a list of actions that we can add. Where's the details? So now we need to switch back over to the details tab. So we just edit, going back to the details tab, click add button, drop down menu, run a macro, select the macro we created earlier, which is this macro. In the new window that appears, as it stands, the macro will now override all of the parameters in our intruder request before we send them. This is great, as it means that we will be getting the login tokens and session cookies straight into our request. That said, we should restrict which parameters and cookie before. So now select update only the following parameters, then click edit next to the input. Enter a new item, login token, press add, so edit, update only the following parameters, add new item, add, then close, select update only the following cookies, then click the relevant edit button, update only the following cookies, enter session, so session cookie, I have to edit, then close, finally press OK to confirm our action. So there's a lot of stuff in here, and remember I did something there with the scope here. I used the custom scope. In this case, in the case that this doesn't work, I should just come back and choose use suite scope. Alright, now I did all of this, click OK, and we're done. That was a long process. You should now have a macro defined. All that's left to do is switch back to the intruder and start the attack. So click OK, go back to the intruder and start the attack. I'm a little bit, so this is the first time I'm doing this, obviously, so you should be getting 302 responses for every request in this attack. If you see 4 or 3 errors, then your macro is not working properly. 302, most of them are 302, and some of them are 403. Okay. As with the login support credential stuffing attack, the response codes here are all the same. 302 redirects. Once again, order your responses by length to find the valid credential. By length, Bella, response, redirecting, 30195, these are 403. 756, and there's only one that's 656. O Bennett Bella 1. Your result won't be as last time. You will see quite a few different response lengths. However, the response that indicates a successful login should stand out as being quite significantly shorter. So this is shorter. Use the credentials you just found. So let's actually test this up. So the is O.Bennett, so O.Bennett Bella 1. Let's actually try this out. O.BNN ETT BELLA 1 403 forbidden. So it's not the right thing. Going back, the password, copy this, oh, it actually was. I'm not really sure what I've done wrong here. So O.Bennett, save, alright. Okay, so I believe that was, let's go back to our Burp suite here. Into the project options, we were at the rule, edit the rule into the scope, use suite scope, then click OK, and then let's go back to the intruder, and we should actually repeat the same attack and see if it works exactly the same. Let's just start the attack. All of them are 403s, as you can see. So defining the custom scope was the right thing to do. So let's just discard this. Let's go back to project options, edit. In the scope, use custom scope and use this scope, click OK. It was the scope for the intruder. Let's go back to the intruder, start attack one more time, and again verify by the length. Let's just, this time doesn't seem to be working as it used to, because now all we get are 302s and the length is the same. So I'm not really sure what I've changed here in the project options. The scope, use custom scope, it's exactly what I did, and I've just repeated that. Anyways, it worked the first time, so that's what is important. We got, let's go back to the intruder, we got the results. It was the O Bennett one. Let's just filter O Bennett. In this situation, we don't see much of anything different because the length is 464 like most of the rest of them. But in the first attack, in our first attack, I believe it was, where was it? In our first attack, it actually went through accordingly. So we have just completed this one, and of course, conclusion, we have completed the intruder room, which was really insightful. Now in the next room of the module, we will be looking at some of the Burp suites, lesser known tools. Let's just terminate this one and actually look forward to what's next. So next, what we're going to look at is other modules. That's gonna be, I'm gonna be starting doing that in the next video, of course.